Oh my god, is the AAA gaming industry dying? Well, no. Okay, let's talk about it. There's a lot of gaming news lately, especially within the last few days. And a lot is an understatement. There were sizable layoffs, a continued trend in 2024 in the gaming industry, this time primarily by Sony with PlayStation. And the layoffs by Sony Interactive Entertainment were sizable, and to quote their article, which will be in the link in the description down below, "We have made the extremely hard decision to announce our plan to commence a reduction of our overall headcount globally by about 8%, or about 900 people, subject to local law and consultation processes. Employees across the globe, including our studios, are impacted. 900 people is a lot, but it is no stranger in 2024, which is a bit of a sad state of affairs, and a lot of takes and opinions, and heated opinions at that, are floating around and being thrown at one another in the gaming industry right now. It's an extremely volatile time, especially for the people that make the games we hold near and dear to our hearts. Game developers. And I will never personally celebrate somebody losing their job. It's a sucky situation, irregardless if I like their game or not. But I think some context is needed in order to properly understand what's going on in the gaming industry right now, and the possible future impact that this can have down the line, not just for the gaming industry, but also for the consumers who consume the gaming industry, which is what I primarily focus on and care about with this channel. So let's establish one basic ground rule here. Corporate heads will never punish themselves, or if they do, it is extremely rare, like Halley's Comet. There really only was one Iwata. They'll punish everyone else for their bad decisions, and then, instead of taking the blame for any loss of profit or money being brought into the business or any slowed down growth, they'll find other ways that don't involve personally sacrificing to make up for that loss, to put them in the green or to put them in a more positive light than they would be otherwise. A lot of the times this boils down to layoffs. If the company itself is underperforming or not growing to the expected degree that they projected themselves to grow at, a lot of the times these big corporations and companies will lay off people to either minimize loss or to turn that loss into overall growth. Taking in less money impacts you way less if you're spending less money, which is their logic. But there's also a second bullet point to this overall conversation. I think this is a representation, on some level at least, of chickens coming home to roost. Now bear in mind, I am not blaming individual developers here, I am blaming the corporate heads who make these overall decisions. It's just the developers who have to bear the brunt of this cost, because that is the world we live in. The industry, especially the AAA industry, doubles, if not triple downs, on chasing trends, and this has been very apparent in the last few years, if not decade. And the latest fads and games of that size take years to create and to cultivate, and by the time they are coming out now, or they are projected to come out within a year or two, those fads are largely gone and forgotten, with new ones to replace them, or the overall arrow of the direction of the gaming industry turns and pivots to different directions. And one of those fads that is starting to go the way of the dodo, at least in some shape or form, is live service in its current incarnation. Because the bubble of live service, BS games, is starting to go. These games require a lot of manpower and time and money to create and cultivate, and in order to pay off in dividends down the line for these corporate heads, these games need to be long-lasting and to rake in a lot of money with aggressive monetization. However, when the industry is positively saturated in games and experiences like these, people only have so many days to play these games and so many hours in those days to play. And if you're putting in the resources to where this game has to be in the upper echelon of success for it to pay off, chances are, with the industry being as saturated in live service games in one form or fashion or the other, chances are it's not going to pan out for you. Look at Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. Look how expensive that game was to make, to the success or lack thereof that it has currently. Companies cannot afford to put in this much time, money, and dedication into an individual IP or experience if it's not going to do the expectations they wanted it to. Look at what a former employee of the developers behind Immortals of Avium said, and to quote, again link in the description down below, "Sure, there was some serious talent on the development team, but trying to make a AAA single-player shooter in today's market was a truly awful idea, especially since it was a new IP that was also trying to leverage Unreal Engine 5. What ended up launching was a bloated, repetitive campaign that was far too long. And while I do think the second half of that statement has some merit to it, the idea that the genre of the game was the root issue of Jmulls of Jmulls is a clear distinction that, on the whole and at some level in the AAA gaming industry, a lot of people are out of touch. And I think you can see this with the breakout successes that games have become, with games like Baldur's Gate 3, Elden Ring, Palworld, and Helldivers 2. Games with various scopes and budgets, games that do not rely on chasing trends but instead try and form their own, that don't feel like they're glorified marketing or online stores with a video game mirage attached to them. They feel like video game experiences first and foremost, with the express desire to create an enjoyable experience for the consumer. When you try and create a game that's going to take years to develop to simply chase a trend, chances are that trend will fade away into the rearview mirror and you won't grasp the original audience you wished you could. However, if you create a game with heart and passion behind it that is fun, endearing, and engaging first and foremost, chances are that game will be timeless and won't rely on chasing trends to begin with and things that are ephemeral. You will cultivate an audience because your game is good first and foremost, not necessarily because your game belongs to a particular genre or has some kind of trope. I think a lot of the times people try to overthink the video games industry, and I disagree with the idea that these layoffs came out of nowhere. Sony pretty much hinted at this with admitting that the PlayStation 5 was underperforming, and even a while back further from that last statement, they canceled like half the live service games that they had in development. Remember the golden rule. Corporate heads care about themselves and protecting their own bottom line, not the bottom line or the well-being of the worker. So with the news that the PlayStation 5 was underperforming, inevitable layoffs were sadly predictable. But this is also a cry, not necessarily a cry, but it's also a representation of an ever-evolving video games industry, and possibly a lot of corporate heads waking up to how out of touch they were, at least to some degree. The cancellation of these live service games tells me that at some level Sony understands that putting out quantity in terms of live service games is not the play for the future. Now, we've talked about Sony's layoffs, but I also talked about Microsoft's layoffs not too long ago, because 2024 just kind of be like that. And this is not necessarily a Sony-specific issue. This is an industry-wide phenomenon that is happening right now, across not just video games, but also tech. To my understanding, I am not an expert on this particular subject. Well, I'm just not an expert, I'm just a dude with a YouTube channel, let's be honest here. There was a boom in technology in 2020, and companies hired on the idea that that boom was going to continue to grow and grow and grow. However, we have not seen that come to pass. So they've been cutting down their workforce from that hiring process from a few years ago, but I can't imagine that's the only reason for all of these layoffs, right? Especially when you get into the nitty-gritty of the specific layoffs that happened across the board. A particular one that I remember is Michael Salvatore from Bungie back in 2023. He wasn't a new hire, he was a storied composer for not only the industry, but also for Bungie, and he was laid off as well. I said the video games industry can be not as complicated as some people make it out to be, but in certain ways can be way more insidious and nefarious at times than others. The overall goal for these companies with the layoffs is not necessarily to cut back on the workforce that they hired from 2020 and subsequent years during the boom. It's find whatever way they can to recoup their losses that they just sustained. I'm also an advocate, though, for taking people at face value sometimes, and to take themselves at their word for when they describe to you what they are going to do. And in a lot of ways, the industry is going to go through a massive seismic change, in my opinion. And I don't even know whether or not to call this a belief or what, or theory or prediction, because I feel that it's kind of obvious. The console industry is about to change, and it's going to piggyback off what Nintendo just did with the Nintendo Switch. We're all just sitting around waiting for Nintendo to actually announce the Switch too, but we are already seeing PlayStation try and piggyback off that success with the Portal. And while it's found a market for die-hard PlayStation fans, I don't believe that it will move the needle in the industry like the Switch did, simply because it's far too limited in its design. And with the recent Xbox podcast where they announced they're gonna port 4 games to multi-platform, they also announced and pretty much said new hardware's on the way. and they heavily hinted at the idea that a portable device will be part of their next generation of consoles / hardware. It is my firm belief that the industry is moving to mobile, portable, or PC gaming, one of these three pillars, and gaming and games are falling under one of those three umbrellas. Have the hardware that provides some kind of unique functionality, particularly being able to play on the go, and then utilize PC gaming or some archetype of PC gaming for a more stay-at-home experience. We've already seen many consoles, or at least both Xbox and PlayStation, become essentially just PCs from Wish. And with the breakout success of the Switch, but also the mobile gaming market, companies care about one thing and one thing only, and that is money. If you want to understand and predict where companies will go in the future, follow the money. Follow the ideas that will make them the most money. Mobile gaming, hybrid gaming in terms of portable devices, that is where the money is going to be. What has been one of the biggest things that Microsoft has bragged about in terms of their Activision Blizzard King deal acquisition, their ever-increasing foothold in the mobile market. Look at what Microsoft has been doing in terms of trying to get Game Pass on as many devices as humanly possible, foregoing the age-old tradition of having console exclusivity and releasing their games day one on PC alongside a version of Game Pass exclusively for PC, which in my opinion is the best deal for Game Pass. But also look at them double down and expand their streaming operations to try and get games from Xbox to as many devices as possible, then now even porting games to other consoles at an ever-increasing rate. They've done it before with Minecraft and Call of Duty. Well, not Call of Duty, but now Call of Duty as well. Keeping Call of Duty multi-platform. That one may be a result of the court case, but you know what I mean. Minecraft has been for Microsoft for a while, and it's been multi-platform. They are now actively bringing more games and titles that were exclusive to their platform to multi-platform devices, like PlayStation and Nintendo. Phil Spencer even admitted exclusivity is going to become less important, not necessarily unimportant, but less important than it currently is in the gaming industry moving forward. Believe them for when they tell you what they're going to do. When someone tells you who they are, believe them. And we have seen Sony try and dip their toe in this idea as well, where they even announced they want to get PlayStation VR games in the headset to work on PC for select titles. They've been dipping their toe even further into the PC market. They released a hybrid not necessarily a hybrid thing, they released a tablet, a portable device with the Portal. And maybe down the line they could bring back the Vita or something along that line, some kind of portable companion device to a stay-at-home experience. There's a massive, massive growing audience for this design. The gaming industry is undergoing a lot of growing pains and sometimes pains from regressing as well. The layoffs absolutely suck, I understand that, and I sympathize to those who are affected. However, when we take a step back and look at the industry on the whole and how it can affect us as consumers, I think the industry is starting to pivot and realize that the future is not where they thought it was going to be a few years back, and now they have to pivot and course correct to adjust for an ever-evolving landscape of the video games industry. Gaming is going mobile, it's going hybrid. PC gaming is on the up and up for a stay-at-home experience, but also having a companion device to be able to play on the go or even in your own home or apartment or whatever is rising as well. We've even seen Steam release the Steam Deck. There's an absolute market for this device. There's an absolute market for these kinds of devices going forward, and I will not be surprised when Xbox announces its new hardware at the end of the year and has a mobile device or a companion device attached to it, or if that functionality is brought to the table as well. Game streaming may become an ever greater possibility as the technology improves and the latency goes down. I agree with the opinions out there that the Google Stadia device was ahead of its time. The tech is simply not there yet, but in a few years it may very well be. And I think Microsoft and PlayStation want to position themselves in such a way to where when that tech is available, they can pounce on the opportunity. Microtransactions are here to stay for quite a while in my opinion. I can't see them going anywhere. They simply make too much money. However, I think these companies are waking up to the idea that only having games, or heavily relying on games that resort to live service BS and monetization is not sustainable for the future, because it's incredibly hard to have a game that high budget to succeed. And these smaller projects seem to be the direction the industry may be taking note of. Palworld, Helldivers 2, to be the prime example. I agree with Phil Spencer with the idea that exclusivity, whilst it will always be important, won't be as important in the future. I mentioned this in my Discord. Consoles are generally sold as a loss leader. They are meant to draw in an audience, not necessarily make money by themselves, though they can sometimes. I think the Switch sells at a profit, for instance. But why have a loss leader to garner a community when you can just simply garner that community through other methods without needing that lost leader to begin with? You may not abandon it wholeheartedly because there's still an audience for that, but it won't be a sole pillar to develop a community going forward. Selling games, getting your games in the hands of consumers in whatever way you can, that seems to be the trend that the industry is going. And while a lot of conversation lately has been boiling down to specifically these specific layoffs in the past, I think they're more an indication of what these companies want to do in the future. VR has not grasped the scene as quickly as many thought it would, but portable gaming, hybrid consoles, that has engrossed the medium. I fully expect to see the industry move in that direction in the future. I imagine we'll see Sony dip their toe further into PC gaming and port parity releases going into the future, though not all at once. I imagine Xbox's next console lineup will have a portable or hybrid companion device, if not just being a Switch-like device. And I imagine Nintendo will have a Switch too, and maintain that hybridization that they already have. Games like Skull and Bones have come out and have become a laughingstock. Games like Helldivers 2 and Palworld have come out to massive success. And we have seen both Sony and Microsoft embrace their respective game. Because I don't believe either expected both of these games to do as well and to succeed as much as they both have. Time will tell what lessons the industry has learned, but this is where I think the industry will go. My heart goes out to all those affected by the layoffs. That always sucks, but we'll see what lessons the industry has learned or taken to heart, if any. Thank you all for tuning in. My pleasure for making the video. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out and helps support future content, and I greatly appreciate it. I'm getting better. My sickness is nearing its completion. I'm almost over it, ish. My voice is still affected, as I'm sure you can tell. But hey, let's go play some video games. Thank you all for tuning in. Stay safe. Leave a comment down below with if you agree with me in terms of where I think the industry will go in the future, or if you have your own prediction. Let me know. I'd love to hear your thoughts, hear your opinions, and to hear your theories. Stay safe. Have a great day. Go play some video games if you can. And as always, I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye, everybody. Until we meet again.